I'm beyond privileged that Rebekah Cresswell agreed to join me for my first ever Culture Whisperer podcast. From the first conversation, it was clear to me what an inspiring leader Rebekah truly is, so I really hope you enjoy listening. Here's a little bit about her to set the context before we get stuck in. Rebekah Cresswell is Chief Executive Officer of Priory, the UK's leading independent provider of mental health and adult social care services. She holds a nursing degree from the University of Liverpool and a master's in health service management from Manchester Business School. Over the course of her career, Rebekah has held senior managerial roles across the UK healthcare sector, including as Head of Governance and Quality Improvement at NHS Stockport, and then as Assistant Director of Clinical Quality and Patient Safety at NHS North West Strategic Health Authority. Rebekah joined Priory in 2012 and became Chief Operating Officer of its Adult Care Division in 2018, where she led 240 sites across the UK. She was appointed Priory's first female CEO in November 2021, following Priory's merger with Median Germany. Rebekah, thank you so much for joining me for my first ever Culture Whisperer podcast. I had a dream about 2 years ago of doing this, and I had a wish list, and you were number one on it. And it took me about 18 months to pluck up the courage to actually do this and get it out there into the world. And when you replied to my LinkedIn message and said yes, there were literally leaps and bounds around the kitchen.
Nice to see you as well. I'm so privileged that you asked me to do this. So thank you.
Well, I think where this whole idea came from is that over the last 15 years, I've had such a great privilege of working with leaders at all levels of an organisation. And outside of all the fancy culture models and everything else, to be a good leader to me is just often about the little things that you do that make a massive difference. And from the first conversation I had with you back in 2021, I think it was, the way that you listen, the way that you bring people in, the way that you are visible to everyone across Priory is really admirable. And there's so much to unpick with that. So thank you, first and foremost. But let's start with the question. So when I first heard you speak about your role at Priory, you were Chief Operating Officer back then, and you talked passionately about doing the right thing by your people. And since then, you've become the first ever female CEO of the Priory Group. How has your role as a culture whisperer evolved in this new position?
Well, I really love the phrase culture whisperer, first of all, because a whisper is not something somebody usually associates with me. I'm a northern girl who speaks facts and says it loudly. So, yeah, cultural toy. But I think it's important never to lose touch with the people. I think it's about your approach to leadership. I mean, I believe that I'm here to serve and support the people that work in Priory, and I think that makes you keep in touch with people, because you've always got to have a sense check of, am I still doing that? Am I still listening to the people? Are we shaping things for a better place? So I really think it's important as a leader that you go back to people and follow up and say, you said this to me and now we're doing this, and creates more of a movement. I've still kept doing that. Our internal comms department is really helpful to me in that they'll tell me what's relevant. They have an ear to the ground, because you can't do everything yourself. You have to be part of a team. But I think the fact, as the chief exec, that you're saying, you know, I want a director of internal communications and engagement besides all the people posts that you might have in an organization is key. It shows where your commitment is.
And it's a big job, right? Across near 15,000 colleagues. And is it 230 sites you've got? 280, my word. So actually remaining visible and creating that movement
as you said, it has to be around a team. I know you're very data driven, and I was looking back at your engagement score and how that's evolved over time, and it's crazy, right? So you became CEO of the Priory on the 1st of November 2021. The engagement score in the October just before that was 58. In April this year, it was 75. That's incredible. I mean, when you talk about impact and data, you must be so proud.
It's just, I mean, I must admit that was one of the things that made me really, really happy and have a sense of achievement, because it was something that was severely lacking. People needed to feel part of something, and to see the people give me and the team the feedback that we are engaged, we are on this journey with you, just means so much to me.
And just even looking at some of the other scores, so Priory as a whole is effectively managed up by 22. Senior leaders are taken us in the right direction, up 22. The top 3 reasons people stay: colleagues, belonging, the relationship with the manager. I believe in Priory's purpose, 87%. I was like looking at the results and just thinking, what an amazing achievement that you've managed to create. Back when we first spoke, though, 2 things really stood out for me that got me really excited about the work that we were going to do together was the importance of tone of voice and authenticity. Now, I've read a lot of your LinkedIn posts, and there's no doubt about it. You are so authentic. But how have those elements shaped your leadership journey at the Priory, especially in building and maintaining that engagement?
I think it's important to say that you don't get it perfect every time. And your ambition might be about the tone in the organization, and it speaks to the cultural whisper that you mentioned is key. It's not always about being, I think some people confuse this, that you're going around being like some fairy who is just granting everybody's wish, or just saying the right thing at the right time. We're all human, you can't get that. And our job as leaders is not to grant every wish. Our job as leaders is to remain absolutely focused on the mission that we have. And my mission, as well as supporting our colleagues in Priory, is to make sure that patients and residents get the support, treatment, help, care that they need. That is number one. Things that drift away from that, we're suddenly going off mission. And I think some people don't realize that, you know, actually paying attention to those things is an act of kindness to the whole organization, because of leaders who want to be liked, if you like, and go above and beyond where it takes them away from that mission. Actually, it doesn't get better engagement. You sometimes get an attitude where we've lost sight of why we're here. So I think to have that balance is really important between helping people understand why you're making some of the decisions. That goes back to the authenticity, and it's sometimes what everybody wants. But it's the fact that they trust you, that you know you have their interests at heart, and part of their interest is to have a sustainable organization where they have safety and security of work and all the rest of it. So yeah, I think getting the tone right, realizing when you haven't, going back to people if you haven't got it right, rather than ignoring it, is important. And then that authenticity, that people know when you say something, there's no hidden message.
Yeah, and that's it. Consistency builds trust, right? So whether you're giving good or difficult messages, then it's around the way that you do it, the intent behind it, and the consistency that you build over time. It's a good point, though, because I think bringing it back to the culture whisper piece, culture whispers can either lift an organisation or bring it down. And have you learned to address and nip negative whispers in the bud?
Priory has 5 values. One of them is being positive. And I think I was just talking about this morning as I was at the gym, when I felt myself going into a bit of a complaining, negative spin. And I caught myself and I said, right, you can either think about why you don't want to be here for whatever reason, or why it's difficult, or you can count your blessings and you can not only count them, but name them. I immediately thought in my head of a number of different things that, are blessings in my life, and it shifted my mindset. And I think when you can create a negative energy that is like a spiral if you don't nip it in the bud. And in health and social care, there is so much to be concerned about at the moment, with people saying there's going to be austerity, there's a huge gap in the budget, the NHS isn't doing as well as it could be. Are we looking after people in social care, and are they getting out of hospital? Have we, if you allowed yourself to go down that path of how difficult and things are going to be, you can't lead people out of it. And I think that's what, sometimes I do have to remind our leaders that one of the values is being positive, because you can turn up at meetings and if it's sort of like a group think, if you like. If somebody, quite a powerful person starts saying, and not necessarily the most senior person, you can be powerful without influential, starts everybody on a track of that downward trend. You can come out of a meeting feeling dreadful. I had a new starter started the other day who went to a meeting full of the joys of spring, hoping to meet colleagues about how, and unfortunately it was one of those meetings, and I was, first of all, I said, I'm really sorry you had that experience, because we actually have a lot to be positive about. And also picked it up with the leader about why we're enabling that to spiral in that way. And so I think it takes active work done. It's not something that you just hope for the best happens.
There's two things that have just stood out for me there. I think bringing it back to values, I think, is absolutely what we should be doing. I think often we think of values and recognizing when we see good things happen, but actually it's about holding people accountable when it's not happening too. And that's where it becomes a living, breathing thing. It really is about accountability and setting leaders up to understand, and not just leaders, everybody, to know that it's okay to call someone out if they're not living those values either. But it's a brave thing to do, isn't it, in terms of having those bold conversations and stepping up and almost making people feel a little bit uncomfortable, but that healthy challenge is positive. And I think the second thing that stood out for me is just the emotional intelligence it needs to be able to do what you did this morning, which is stop yourself, because it's that self-awareness, isn't it? And how important is that in terms of leaders, and whether that's a leader that has line manager responsibility or whether it's an informal leader as well?
And I think just to go back to that, to the point about being positive and being brave, I think it does take a lot for somebody to swim against the tide when there is a thing. And I think that is the other thing about being a culture whisperer. And I am constantly whispering that message of be courageous. These are not jobs for faint-hearted people.
And I think I read somewhere around how you loved working with Jen Stutt as your chief people officer, because she's not a yes person. She will challenge you. That's what you need, though, isn't it? That's how you get better, is how you deliver as a team, is when there is that healthy conflict.
And when it keeps you safe as well as a leader, because one person can't have all the answers. So, to hear the opinions of different members of the UK board is hugely important to me. And I like to come to a decision together. Sometimes either you have to say, right, I've considered everything and we're saying this is where we're going to do, but that's rare when we're into everybody getting to some consensus.
Hope. I love that word. I think a lot of what I wanted to do with the Culture Whisperer was talk about hope, and how the leaders that I know and have experienced in my career are the bringers of hope. But to your point, how do you cultivate hope and optimism among colleagues in a sector, like you said, where the challenges can be deeply personal and truly emotionally taxing?
Yeah, I love hope. Hope is hugely powerful. And I read your sort of message around hope, which I found very inspiring. And I'd noticed that you mentioned the word light as well as part of hope. And what always amazes me about light, when you switch the light on, even if it had been dark before, there isn't some kind of darkness that's trying to sort of overcome that light, if you like. If you have that out there with that presence, it is very hard for negative things to encroach on that. So it's hugely important to show people the way. Now, hope, as you'll know, is the expectation of something to happen or something that people believe in. And I think they do have to believe in their leaders or the purpose of the organization to have that hope. If everything else is saying to you that this isn't something that you can have faith or a belief in, you're not going to have the hope there. So you have to build the purpose and the vision. You have to celebrate when things have gone really well so that people can see the potential of what can happen, and you keep that hope alive. I've said in other podcasts before that hope also in mental health is hugely important. When, as important as medicine, tell somebody you feel like today, but you won't in the future, and giving them that hope that this isn't where they're going to be forever. So, I mean, it's intertwined in everything that we do.
And on that note, it made me think that being a culture whisperer isn't just inside our organisations, it's the impact that it has on wider society and on our communities as well. And I saw last week that you've just launched a free UK-wide programme for children to help tackle mental health. Do you want to tell us a bit more about this? Because I'm hoping this might be a platform to get it out, because it sounds incredible.
I've used our best therapists. They've done recordings on different topics to help young people. It's aimed at older primary school, early years into high school. And I don't know whether you remember that time, but all the pressure. I mean, my youngest son is doing his GCSEs at the moment, and we can't underestimate the amount of pressure on people. I don't seem to remember that amount of pressure on me. I remember hard, and maybe that's rose-colored glasses looking back, and there was that there. But yeah, it's a free offering because Priory is not just about giving the latest therapeutic or clinical models. It is also serving the people of the United Kingdom, and that is something that we saw that we could do quite easily. So that's how the package came about.
I love that. And I will share the details of it on any social media posts that I do, because I think it's something that all our children would benefit from. So bringing it back to Priory, as you've worked with your teams, what are the small yet powerful actions that have made the most significant difference, do you think, on your culture?
I think knowing people is really important. It doesn't take a lot of time to know something about somebody and then remembering it. Nothing in a textbook is going to teach you that. But everybody likes it. I know that I love it when I can just be myself with somebody and they appreciate me for who I am and being known, like, oh, I know you don't like that, or I know that you love this. It makes you think, oh my goodness, that person has recognized me and, wants me to be comfortable where I am or be able to talk about how I feel. And I try and do that with my team. It's little things that I, check in on the one who's doing the MBA at the moment, somebody else who might be moving house or, and I think also allowing people space when they're going through difficult times. We're all human, and sometimes we're going through some quite difficult things in our lives. And I think by understanding people and giving them space, I can't tell you how much loyalty and commitment comes back, because they saw me when I was down and you've supported me during that time. Yeah. So I think those are the small things you can do for people that mean a lot.
I love that so much, though. And even just the way that you said that, it comes across so authentically because it's so genuine. And I think it's so true. It's about connection, isn't it? And the way that you connect with people is truly being with them in that moment. And I remember when I first joined WorkBuzz, I had a coffee with Steve, who you've met, our CEO, and he was expecting a really important phone call. And he didn't take it because he was sat with me in that conversation. And that was the most important thing to him at the time. And I will never, ever forget that. And he's shown up in that way over the years in so many different ways. But we often talk about this big recognition program, or it's this or it's that. But actually, it's that sense that somebody has seen you, that someone cares about you, that someone sees you as more than just a title or a number. I love that. I read somewhere that your background is a nurse, right? And is it true that you went back to the floor and did a 12-hour shift as a nurse?
Yes, I did it as a healthcare assistant though, because I wanted to work with them rather than lead a shift. But I hugely enjoyed it, and I forgot. I mean, they didn't do 12-hour shifts, or it's actually more than 12 hours if you include the break. How much it's important to wear good shoes. I mean, I've done that. I didn't have. I wish I could have worn a pedometer or something to see how many steps I walked, but huge kudos to colleagues. And one of the things that I loved is actually, as a nurse, teaching some of my skills to more junior healthcare assistants. And one of the shifts I did was just after the pandemic when chefs and different people, because all the hospitality was closed down, had gone into care. And I think we assume sometimes that everybody knows how to wash someone. It's so important, and we don't teach those things anymore. So I'm afraid I'm one of those diehard old school nurses who will be like, right, this is how we do it. This is how you can wash somebody in bed fully without getting the sheets wet, or take the time to wash someone's hair. Don't just be task driven where you go if you notice that somebody needs their hair washed. And I remember one of the healthcare assistants saying to me, yeah, but we won't get that done by this time. I said, I'm saying that we need to wash this hair. There's no more important task right now than to do this for this lady. And so bringing that heart back and getting to know the person, that's a bit of identity stuff, isn't it, as well, seeing that somebody has a need and then meeting it.
I think I saw a quote from you somewhere that said, if it's not good enough for my family, then it's not good enough for one of our service users. And I think it's like with everything, isn't it? It's like, it's treat people how you want to be treated. And I think it's such a great litmus test for culture sometimes, isn't it? Is do the people that we have inside our organisations care? Are they just good human beings that want to make a difference? And it's about giving them permission sometimes, right? Because we're so bound by rules and processes and what we should be doing. And sometimes that's about short-term focus because we've got targets to hit, right? But actually, the bigger picture is that purpose, isn't it? So if you could send out a positive whisper across the whole of Priory that your colleagues would hear daily to inspire them, what would it be and why?
I think when you're in health and social care, and it doesn't matter whether you're in a hospital or care home, Priory only look after and support really complex people. Everybody who's admitted to our hospital is suicidal. There's no such thing as coming in because I feel a bit down or whatever. So can you imagine working in that high pressured, but you have to be as compassionate and sensitive as you can. Or I'm in a care home looking after somebody with dementia who keeps taking their clothes off every time I get them dressed, or you want to preserve their dignity, or a care home where somebody with autism has to have things in a very specific way, and but you might have a lot on. I guess my message, so sorry to give that big long context, but how do we guard ourselves from burnout, compassion burnout, kindness burnout, care burnout? And I think I would say just keep being brilliant. Remember all the lives you're saving, all the people that you're supporting to become more independent and fulfill their potential. And it goes back to what you said again, Dawn, that hope of this is not just where we are now. remember all those people that he thought would never come out of a hospital or never come out of a care home when they're now living in the community. I have thousands of stories I could tell you. There's not enough time for the podcast, And it's the difference. I mean, we took one young man who had autism, never left his room in a hospital, urinated all around his room because he needed his own sort of sensory stimulation. And he's gone to one of our care homes, and now somebody has taught him how to ride a bike. And he loves it. Going from that sort of, I'm in these four walls, to like, I've now got a freedom of wind in my hair and joy. And if you didn't have that mentality, if I'm going to try my best to help you from that situation into this one, he wouldn't be riding a bike. That takes a special care, a special support worker.
Wow, and it brings it back to your purpose, which is about living life, and that is truly enabling someone to live their life. And thank you for sharing the story, because it's everything that I wanted this podcast to be. It's that true difference-making, life-changing, goosebumpy, bring tears to your eyes kind of stuff that is so important, and it's at the centre of hope, isn't it? So that's the most beautiful message, and I'm hoping that we can get that out to everyone, because that would inspire me every day. You've got me all really emotional, as you can tell by my voice. So I guess lastly, if you were to recommend another culture whisperer that you've come across in your life, who might that be?
Yes, that is a really good question. There's so many people, but I would like to recommend Kate Herod, who's the hospital director at Priory Hospital, Cheadle Royal, because this hospital's been through a lot. I personally interviewed Kate because I knew the hospital needed an excellent leader. And when you come into a situation where people really need to feel safe, to feel valued, to feel all the good things that you need for belonging at work, you don't always get a great response at the beginning where you go, I've cracked it. It's hard work to break through and try and build that.
I love that. I will see if I can encourage Kate to come on, because I hope that this will enable me to speak to people at all levels of organisations, and even down to your healthcare assistants and everyone. Like, they are making a difference. They are culture whisperers. And I hear so many times of organisations that just know who those people are, and they really have such a positive impact by whispering really positively about your purpose, your vision, your mission, your values, all of that. And they can be the most cynical people in the room, but if you get them on board, if you explain the why, they will be your biggest advocates. And I think that's the joy of culture whisperers, right? We're everywhere.
I think the more important ones are definitely at that sort of ward level, care home level, because otherwise, like you say, the negatives can come in. So yeah, it's a daily, proactive mission to pay attention to your culture.
So we're coming to the end, and I threw a bit of a curveball at you at the beginning while we were prepping for this, because I'm keen for this podcast to have a wider reach, positive vibe, shall we say. And myself and my husband celebrated our 20th wedding anniversary last week, and it reminded me that on our wedding invitation, we asked everybody what was the song that was guaranteed to get them on the dance floor, because we knew if we did that in the evening, everyone would have that moment where they go, I love this song. So my vision is to create a Culture Whisperer playlist made up of the favourite songs of all of our guests that we interview over time. And that could be something that gets you on the dance floor, that gets you dancing in the kitchen, or that just brings you joy. So what would your song be, Rebekah Cresswell?
Same. Is it Irene Cara did that one? I love that song.
That's on my cheesy playlist too.
I do like cheesy music. Boney M's always good too. But I guess for that, Fame, they might think I'm trying to big up myself, but it's more about somebody being on a mission, isn't it? To overcome. Brilliant.
I'm going to let the team know, and next time you go on stage, they're going to play Fame as you come on. the learning of the dance routine. Thank you so much, Rebekah. You are a true culture whisperer, and I'm so glad that you agreed to join me for my first ever podcast.
Thank you. What a great privilege to talk to you, Dawn.